Today, let's do a deep dive into athletes in college football 26 Dynasty, man. College football 25, I love the athletes, man. Every single thing about them, I believe they was the best in the entire game when it comes to just being able to move to different positions, being versatile, also just coming in with better skill sets than the regular player at the same position. And you see the same exact thing this year. So in this video, we're going to dive deep into it, show y'all everything, best athletes, how to move guys around, and next we will drop our athlete tier list that will be coming soon. If y'all do enjoy this content, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Appreciate y'all boys, man. Check out the ebook/membership if you want all this information in a document form. A lot of updates coming to that ebook, so tap in. So what we did here is we grabbed Georgia because I wanted to bring in as many athletes as possible. So I brought in 16 total athletes and at least one at every single position group, man. At least one at every single position. So we brought in 3 athlete receivers, or excuse me, quarterbacks. And the 5-star looks amazing. You'll see you can also move this guy to defense. He can play a bunch of different spots. And then we had to bring in a classic version of this, man. First of all, I really do think athletes might be the best thing in the game. Once again, like after doing my research now and really diving deep into these guys are phenomenal. Last year, clear best in the game. This year, I think that's also the case, especially when you consider a guy like this, 3-star athlete quarterback. It took me 10 seconds to find him. Literally, y'all know the method. 10 seconds to find the best quarterback damn near in the whole entire draft, and he's a 3-star. Also was able to bring in the 5-star, who is also phenomenal, and then just another 3-star athlete that's not the generational type build. This is what a normal one looks like. And he's not that impressive. You know, the accuracies are terrible, throw power, and he's a gem is the crazy part. So do the method to find the, best 3-star, the best quarterback in the class. We also brought in a backfield threat, running back 4-star, a contact seeker 4-star, a east-west playmaker 4-star. I believe I didn't miss any single athlete archetype. Also, we brought in 2 contested specialists, 6'4" and a 6'2" version, 2 5-stars. We brought in a tight end, the pure possession tight end that will also be able to move around to different spots. And then we also brought in 1 athlete center, 1 agile athlete center. This archetype is pretty much identical to last year. Edge rusher. We brought in 1 athlete edge rusher. Power rusher is the archetype. I really do like this archetype. I think it's much improved this year rather than last year, and you kind of get 2 different versions. Sometimes you get this version of the athlete power rusher that comes in with the good strength and also the very good power moves, but he's the bigger archetype, 6'5", damn near 300 pounds. He could go play D tackle and also have good speed, good everything. And then you get like the other version like this who has the better finesse moves, and he's a little bit lighter, a little bit more speed, still got the strength, a little bit less block shedding, but they consider him a power rusher, but he got higher finesse moves. So you kind of get 2 different versions of these edge rushers, and you'll notice this with a lot of different of these athletes. Like for example, the quarterbacks, it's a bunch of different versions of the quarterback athletes. Some can never play defense, some, can play defense very well, and you'll kind of see all of that here. And then the last one, last but definitely not least, your athlete middle linebacker. And the thing about these guys, it don't matter if you bring in a 4-star or 3-star version, you're not losing out on speed. For some reason, the speed is always there on these guys. Now, when you do go up to the 4-star and the 5-star version, you get more hit power and, some stuff like that. You do get better attributes overall, but you don't really lose out on speed. So that's why I really like these athlete thumpers. And, they can play anywhere on defense. We'll get all into that here in a second. So let's come in here to position changes. And this year, when you bring in the athletes, you're able to look at them like this, where it's just sorted by the athletes. My issue with this, you can't see every single thing. Like, for example, it don't show you no defensive stats here, man. We get all of the offensive stats, but no defense. So we can't even use this screen to really look how good our players actually are. So that's a little bit annoying, but it is what it is, man. We'll roll with the punches here. So we're going to come over here and just sort by athletes, and we'll kind of go through, start with the quarterback, and we'll kind of just talk through my thought process, where you should play them, how good are they actually. And for example, Cornell here, let's start with the big dog. And this guy was the athlete 3-star quarterback that comes in 78 overall. He comes in as the best quarterback probably in the whole entire class, and he's tied with the 5-star. The 5-star here is a 78 overall. The 3-star is 78 as well. Attribute wise, they're also kind of similar, similar speed, change direction, and all of that stuff is going to go to the 5-star. On the 5-star will be a little bit more versatile as far as he could play receiver better, but they both could play receiver, man. You could bring in these athlete quarterbacks and pit them at receiver, pit them at defense also, and you'll see that here in a second, man. The route running, the catching, and even the release is all in a solid spot. They're 6'4", 6'3", and they have enough speed. But the quarterback stats are phenomenal on these guys. So I suggest keeping them at quarterback, because quarterback is the most valuable position, and it's the most challenging to find a guy. It is. It's the most challenging to find a guy that is good. So when you're able to find one of these 3-star athletes that's, look crazy like this, I would suggest keep them at quarterback, especially when the accuracies are all 80s across the board. The 3-star version is actually a better quarterback prospect than the other one, than the 5-star version, as he has better throw power, better accuracies across the board. Throwing a run is better. All of that stuff is also just in a little bit of a better spot. But these guys could also play defense a little bit, man. Tackling 50 and 55. You're not getting much tackling with these guys. Hit power, block shedding. So they're not playing safety for you. But the interesting part, you're getting 77 and 75 on the power and finesse moves for the 5-star version. That is very good. That is good enough to go play D-line. He's 6'4", 203 pounds. Maybe a little bit too light, and also he don't have no tackling. So it's kind of puts you in a weird spot, because he can't really go play safety, or he can't play linebacker for sure, as he's too light and don't have enough tackling. But he do have that elite, finesse and power moves for a freshman. That's elite, I should say. And but he could also cover 78 man, 72 zone. The press is dirt. He cannot press anyone. But, the 3-star version also has, good enough coverages to go play defense as well. So these guys are just pretty damn versatile, man. You look where you can move him around. He could also play running back. He would be an even better running back, similar thing we seen last year with these athlete quarterbacks. They could play running back better than anything else. Tight end, vertical threat tight end is actually usable this year. That's not a bad option to pit a guy like this. Speedster receiver is also not a bad option to pit a guy like this when he's actually a good a good receiver with good enough speed, good catching, all of that. He could go play boundary corner. Only issue, he's not going to have no press coverage. But as y'all know, if y'all watched the video I dropped the other day when I showed y'all pretty much how to make the perfect cornerback, well, this is another way to make the perfect cornerback. When you move this guy to boundary corner, his man coverage is going to be in the first category, and his press coverage is also going to be tied into that. And because those two are together, it's going to be super cheap for him to upgrade because the press is so low. So result, you'll be able to get 99 man coverage on this corner pretty damn easily. It'll be pretty easy to get him 99 man coverage, and you don't even need great skill caps. His press would never be phenomenal. You'll be able to get up into the low 70s, maybe mid 70s. It'll never be great. But you can get the press up there, the zone coverage also you get up there as well. He could become a great corner. Free safety, I wouldn't do that. If he turned into a hybrid safety, then I'll pursue that option. You could put him at a coverage specialist, but I don't think it's worth it with the low tackling. I really don't think it's worth it. It's either corner, D-line. I want to say D-line because the finesse moves and the power moves, but it's probably not worth it for D-line for these quarterbacks. You're either looking at corner, in my opinion, or one of the offense positions, receiver, tight end, quarterback, or running back. They could play literally 5 positions. I really, really do like these athlete quarterbacks. So we're actually going to move them all just to the quarterback position on this team. But in another situation, like I said, I would spread them out. I'll move them wherever I need them at on our roster. Here, we just need quarterback. All right, so we got the quarterbacks out the way with. Let's move over to the running backs, and let's start with that East-West playmaker, who the 4-star version of this, he's coming in with 92 speed, which is pretty good. Sometimes they come in faster, 94, 95 speed. That is possible, especially you get them at a gym. But overall, these guys could stick at running back. He already has Shifty on bronze, but you'll notice they come in with very, very good catching. These guys, I believe, could play receiver also. Or you could just have a very good catching running back that coming in with good hands, catching traffic, and also route running across the board, medium to deep. You'll never have to upgrade his route running throughout his career if you don't want to, because already in a great spot for a running back. Also, good release. Like, he literally could go play receiver if y'all want a good jumping as well. I wonder if that shifty ability would transition over to receiver if we move them. It depends if he turned to a speedster. We'll be able to see here in a second. Now, defense, he also could play a little bit of defense. 62 on the tackling. He's not going to go play linebacker, no block shedding. Finesse moves and power moves is good once again. 76, 72 is good for a guy that's 6'1", 208 pounds. And also man cover 75, zone cover 64. Like, he go play corner. The press is not great, but it could improve. Similar method. We'll see what type corner he might turn into. But look at the overall. So he's going to be best at running back. And I think you should keep him at running back. You could go the tight end route. And maybe not the worst thing in the world. 208 pounds at tight end. It's light, especially when you 6'1". I probably wouldn't do it. Corner is another very good option to move him to. Hybrid safety, I would move him to hybrid safety also. Speed rushing defensive lineman. The thing about it, if you could get over the fact that he has low tackling, low block shedding, he could be a great pass rusher if you get over the fact that those two. With manual progression, you could upgrade those things and get him stronger, get him to be a better run defender, and just have this insane pass rusher with 92 speed coming off the jump. And y'all seen the finesse and power moves. He could be a dog coming off the edge. But like I said, the issue is he's on the smaller side. A receiver is, in my opinion, is another good option for these guys. But unfortunately, this one will turn into a elusive route runner. That's one of the worst receiving archetypes in the game, in my opinion, because they can never increase catching traffic. Other than that, it's a solid archetype, but the catching traffic, and also I just think other archetypes have better abilities. So it's like, damn, you'll see some other East-West playmakers, they might turn to a speedster. It all just depends what their attributes look like, and that determines what type of archetype they would turn into. So these East-West playmakers, honestly, I wouldn't go after them unless I want to run it back. Be honest. If I'm looking for a guy that's going to go play defense, the East-West playmaker is not my go-to, man. You'll see my go-to for a guy that I want to play safety or corner. But here, I'm bringing them in mostly to play running back, maybe with a backup option of, if I want a super glitchy speed rushing defensive lineman, or you could put him at hybrid safety and develop the run stopping ability. But like I said, I think he's really best at the receiver or at running back, and also he can play receiver pretty well. Next, let's talk about the contact seeker, man. And this is also an interesting archetype. The speed is never going to be great on these guys, but 85 is actually on the high end. Yes, 85 is on the high end for the contact seeker. It's the power back archetype. And last year, y'all know my favorite conversion was the power back to D-line, and it's going to be similar this year, man. This guy comes in 6 foot 250. Like I said, 85 on the speed, 84 acceleration, 84 on the strength. That's pretty good. He could stick at running back, man. He could definitely stick at running back. Solid truck in. The break tackle, not amazing, honestly, but solid truck in. Stiff form. The spin and juke not going to be up there. The catching is not horrible, considering these contact seekers usually be having bad catching. This is not horrible right here. That's actually, pretty good for all things considered. But moving over to the defensive stats, and this is where I believe this guy is meant to play. I think this contact seeker, they are meant to play defense. Play recognition 71, tackling 75, not amazing, but that's good enough. Hit power 79. Sometimes you'll see that in the 80s. Just all depends on what type guy is. Every guy coming with different stats, obviously, but that hit power can get up there in the 80s, man. Block shedding 73 is honestly solid for all things considered. Finesse moves going to be 70 and power moves 79. Like, he could go play D-line for sure, man, especially with just the well-rounded stats. Like, 73 block shedding is solid, man. That is solid for a guy that's 225 pounds in this game, man. Block shedding sometimes be scarce. And then also you get a little bit of ability to cover. 61 man is nothing crazy, but 71 zone is good enough, especially if he's playing D-line. Even put him at outside linebacker, that could continue to develop. No press coverage. You're not putting him at corner. You could put him at safety, honestly, but you're definitely not putting him at corner. And you look at his overalls, man, and look where he could play. And his best position is actually D-line. He turns into a power rusher, which is one of my favorite D-line archetypes, man. Sometimes they'll turn to the pure power archetype, And my only issue with that is you can never upgrade the finesse moves. At least with the power rusher, you can upgrade the finesse and the power moves and make them more well-rounded. So I really, really do like this conversion, man. Just the contact seeker moved over to D-line. I think that's an excellent conversion. Also, you could put him at D-tackle. Would I do it? No. Honestly, 73 overall. He's a little bit too light to play D-tackle. Way too light to play D-tackle. But it's an option. My next option would be Sam or middle linebacker. Sam Will or middle linebacker. And honestly, safety. You know, it's unfortunate they call him a coverage specialist. I have no idea how that's his archetype. He should 100% be a box specialist. He has like 61 man with 71 zone. No way he's a coverage specialist. But it is what it is, man. It is what it is. You definitely can move him to safety, linebacker, or keep him at running back. I like these archetypes a lot. And, you know, you can just play in whatever. And I think contact seeker is just one of the more underwhelming archetypes in the game. These contact seekers just don't always develop to be the highest overall. So it's like, you know, I think they could be fun, but I think it's other better power back archetypes, and they don't even get the head first ability, which is a pretty solid ability. And the last running back archetype we'll cover is going to be the backfield threat, and these guys are rare. Like, it's not many backfield threats in every single class. It's not many, so it's rare. When you do find them, you know, they're interesting. You know, not amazing speed, 87 on the speed. He's also 5'11", 199 pounds. So, you know, that kind of tells you what type archetype and where he could maybe play, if he could play defense. Acceleration, 88. You know, awareness, low, all of that. Run or break tackle, 75. Honestly, not terrible. No stiff form, no trucking. The juke and spin is solid. The catching is solid. You know, it's not amazing, but it's pretty good. You know, I think the East-West playmaker actually come in with better receiving numbers than the backfield threat, which is interesting. The athlete version, man, only the athlete version of these two archetypes. Like I said, the East-West playmaker actually come in with better stats because the East-West playmaker actually came in with solid receiving stats across the board. You know, deep route running, medium route running, all of that was actually in a better spot with better release. And both of these guys were 4-stars that we was looking at. So these backfield threats on offense, you're either looking at running back or that's it. You know, you're probably not moving them to receiver because no point. You know, tight end, definitely no, too small. But coming over to the defense side of the ball, you're getting 68 tackling, which is usable for, you know, a guy that weighed 200 pounds, under 6 foot. 78 hit power is also usable for a guy with this type archetype. The pass rush ability is solid, 67, 73, but he's probably not going to play edge rusher for you. The coverages is also super solid. I'm saying solid a lot, but it is 74 and 77 for the man and zone. No press, but having no press could work in your benefit sometimes, man. We talked about that earlier. Now, let's see what archetype he could turn into. So either backfield threat or coverage specialist. So the coverage specialist archetype sucks a little bit because, like I said, the hybrid safety just better for this just developing guys, I believe, because the coverage ratings are all grouped together. But the coverage specialist, not the end of the world. He could definitely go play safety and play coverage specialist, 100%. I think running back is their best, you know, position. Honestly, it's the archetype I'm going to avoid. You know, I'm not going to go out my way to bring in an athlete backfield threat, man. I think these guys are not, you know, that amazing. You could put them at boundary corner, and now we talking. This, when I mentioned earlier, having that low press coverage could help you out because now you could get a corner that could 100% get 99 on the man coverage. So let's move on to the next position group, which is going to be the receiver. Different drip. This is a different day. Like, comment, subscribe, man. We grinding. We're going crazy. But no, let's move on to the receiver, which is actually probably my favorite, maybe behind the quarterback, the athlete quarterback, the receiver. Contested specialist. The thing about these guys, they could be 6'4", they could be 6'5". You get them as big bodies. We was able to bring in 2 right here. And you see, man, this guy right here, I believe he's a 5-star. I believe they're both actually 5-stars, and you'll see what they actually look like here in a second at other positions. But 91 speed for a 6'4" guy is very good, especially when it could continue to develop. Good acceleration, also not bad strength. 71 strength is pretty darn solid, actually, bro. So that's also good. You know, carrying all of that stuff, even solid trucking. These guys get the running back abilities as you play them at receiver. So having that solid break tackle is actually not that surprising because they get running back abilities when they're at receiver. The juke move and spin move is pretty solid also. The catching is also going to be at a good level as long as also with the route running. You know, deep route running, a little bit of a drop off, but overall, a very, very good receiver archetype. So that's why it makes these guys so good, because you could keep them at receiver or you could move them to defense. And now we're talking about a damn near generational or insane cornerback safety. 6'4 corners, 6'4 safeties. You don't get that in this game. You have to go do this to get a 6'4, 6'5 corner or safety. You got to move a former receiver over there. Jumping out this world also. And let's come over here to the defensive side of the ball. And this is where it gets a little bit crazy. So play recognition 78, 68 tackling. That's good enough to play safety and corner. No hit power, no block shedding. You don't want to put these guys at linebacker. No pass rush ability. Pursuit is at a solid level, and that's expected. You know, they can play safety and corner as we talked about plenty of times. And now you get to the pass or the pass coverage here. 78 on the man, 71 on the zone. And that's consistent for both of these guys. And that's solid. That is pretty darn solid. No press coverage. But like I said with the other guys earlier, this having no press coverage could play to your benefit, especially when they turn into a boundary corner. So let's look at this guy. And yes, he will turn to a boundary corner, and we already know what we could do with that. We could turn him into a 99 man coverage corner. His press will never be amazing. You get to the 70s, you know, mid 70s, it'll never be great. But his man coverage could go 99 pretty darn quickly. Same thing with the hybrid safety. You can move in the hybrid safety and have a phenomenal safety that also could develop them coverages, get that press up there. And you could also just turn him into a hybrid safety. And the thing about those guys, the man, the zone, and the press coverage are all in one position group or all in one section. So you can upgrade it all at once. And then once you just get it to a good level, move him to corner. You literally could do that, or play him out of position at corner and keep him at safety. You do either one. You play him out of position. Ratings are probably going to decrease a little bit, but just understand that. Or you can go put him at tight end. This is one we haven't talked about all year. Putting these receivers at tight end, this is a great position change. You know, the blocking is going to be janky, but it can develop and get better. It's going to be janky, but can develop. And then running back. For some reason, they love to put these contested specials as, you know, highest overall at running back. Personally, I wouldn't do it. You could, but I wouldn't do it because they're not going to have, you know, they're going to be a backfield threat. They're great receivers. I feel like you're just not best utilizing these guys at running back, man. You way better, even though their overall say is 80. I don't think so, man. The ball carrying vision is not that high. The carrying not that high. The trucking is not good enough for running back. The juke move and spin move is solid. Just not running back for me, man. I'll be honest, not running back. So I love these guys, either safety or corner or receiver or tight end. You know, that's kind of what you're looking at. Wouldn't really go D-line. Wouldn't go linebacker neither. But you really have some great options here, man. Great options. So let's move Dennis over to receiver. So this is actually the other guy. Let's look at him and see where his overalls is going to be at other positions. So vertical threat tight end is going to be his best overall, also with the backfield threat. And like I said, I don't love the backfield threat. If I'm able to get him to convert to vertical threat, I am much more willing to move him to tight end. Vertical threat is a way better tight end archetype, in my opinion, when it comes to development. Now, abilities is going to be that physical route runner when it comes to abilities, but development, I do like the vertical threat tight end better. Now, same situation. He can play receiver, corner, safety. I love that he turned to the boundary because, like I said, the press is going to be low, but it kind of plays to your advantage. If you do want to get the press up there, move into hybrid. That's how you get the press up there and upgrade it like that. And you could do 1,000 different things with them guys, man. I really do like that athlete receiver. And we're going to drop the tier list here shortly, man. Athlete tier list for every single athlete in the game will be dropping shortly. Now, last one here for the offensive side of the ball is going to be your agile centers. That comes in with the insane speed. I know people last year loved to move these guys over to tight end. I don't think that's the method this year, man. I really don't. You could do it if you want. I don't think that's the method. And the thought process, it was a free blocking tight end that got a great overall, had enough speed, and sometimes they learned how to catch. Sometimes the catching did develop to be great. This year, with the way position or skill caps work when you move guys out of position, not ideal. Not ideal, man. You could move him to tight end from the jump and, not suffer a major skill cap, decrease. But I still wouldn't do it. I don't think it's worth it, in my opinion. I didn't love it last year, and I don't love it this year neither. Now, these guys could play offense. They could play O-line, obviously. But where their overall shoots up is when you move them to D-line. But I like them at O-line. Like, attributes are super solid across the board. From pass blocking to run blocking to the strength, this is obviously a 4-star player, but super solid. Impact blocking, like this is a guy you want to have, in my opinion, playing the interior of the offensive line. Whether it's guard, you might even want to put him at tackle because they do get this quick drop ability, which I believe has to do with speed. No, I'm wrong. Pocket shield is the one that has to do with like speed and acceleration, which is weird, man. That one is improved pass blocking movement, and it has to do with like speed and acceleration, which is interesting for an offensive lineman. So having a guy with elite speed and elite acceleration on O-line is actually pretty good. But these guys could play defense. Like, these guys could play defense crazy. 86 finesse moves is insane for a offensive lineman. Obviously he could play D tackle or he could go play edge. And I think I'm more willing to put him at edge than D tackle. I think so. When it comes to the block shedding is low, and that's my thought process. The 65 block shedding is brutal for a D tackle, but put him at edge, and you're looking at 6'3", 300 pounder damn near with solid speed, damn near 80 speed, good acceleration, 86 finesse moves coming off the edge, and he can't play linebacker, but he pretty much can play anywhere in the trenches. I like this archetype, man. I really do. Same from last year, when you move him over to defense, their overall seems to go up. So he's a 68 overall, and that's at center. You move him to tackle or guard, his overall going to be higher, and he's going to be a raw strength. And I don't love that neither, because the issue with the raw strength linemen, they can't upgrade the pass blocking finesse, which is unfortunate. Just an unfortunate thing that I don't know if it's a bug glitch, whatever, but it needs to be patched. And his strength is also at 90, which is pretty darn good. Like I said, I think the best play is to put him at edge. I really do think that's the best play. D tackle is not a bad choice, but I like to put him at speed rusher and just have him at the edge instead of having him at D tackle, where he's going to be food in the running game. Now the issue is, if you move him to one of these other offensive lineman spots, you have to keep in mind he's going to lose these abilities. You got to keep that in mind. So this one in particular is starting off with 2 abilities, and one starting on silver. That's pretty good. Now, if we move him to left tackle, any of the guard spots, he lose them 2 abilities. So maybe you're willing to sacrifice a little bit of overall to keep him at center. Maybe. It's up to you. I probably would, because honestly. Keep them abilities, sacrifice a little bit of overall, and we'll get that overall back on the back end. Also, tight end, like I said, a lot of people like this conversion. You could do it. You saw us catching. It was like in the 20s. I think he had like 29 catching, if I remember right. Route running also very bad. But develop him for a couple years, he could turn into a guy. He could turn into a solid tight end. Like I said, just take a couple years. I would rather put him at edge or D tackle, or keep him at the O-line. Tight end probably be my 3rd choice on that list. But it is possible. You could get a tight end drafted pretty easily if you do it. So just keep that in mind. But another phenomenal athlete option here, and you can just see how versatile they really are. So actually, we skipped one. Before we forget, tight end. We brought in 2 tight ends, and their prior possessions, and one actually had elite development. They're all 3 stars. We wasn't able to find it was only one 4-star athlete tight end, and we couldn't even talk to him at all. So we had to bring in a 3-star version. But this archetype is also pretty good, man. Last year, later in the cycle, I pretty much realized how good these tight ends actually are. But if you move them to safety, that's the conversion I really like, man. You get a 6'5", 240-pound safety. Yes, he only has 85 speed. This is the 3-star version. The 4-star version will have more speed, but it could develop. And when you see his attributes, you might be willing to sacrifice a little bit of speed when you get in some of this other stuff. So we already know the speed, acceleration also pretty bad. 80 strength is pretty good. This guy could also play linebacker. The offensive side, he could play tight end also, man. The everything is just mid, when it comes to like high 60s, low 70s, when it comes to all his offense abilities, juking, trucking, all of that stuff. The catching, low 70s. It's not horrible, but also not amazing. The blocking, the route running is also in a mid spot, okay spot. Like, he's a solid tight end, especially for a 3-star version as well, man. We could also look at the blocking, and it's also it's not great. It's not great for possession, but upper 50s, it could get into, the lower 70s into a solid spot. Now, when you look at the defensive side of the ball, this is where he stands out, in my opinion. The play recognition, 73, 83 tackling. That is very, very solid. That is very solid. That could play at safety or middle linebacker, outside linebacker. That could definitely play at linebacker. 81 on the hit power, also plays. 68 on the block shedding, a little bit on the low side, but not that bad. The power moves and finesse moves, not great. Sometimes it'll be better. Sometimes it'll be in the low 70s. These guys could also go play edge. This is a guy that could definitely go play edge with that 85 speed and these finesse moves and power moves. It's just not great. It could continue to develop. Edge is not my favorite conversion for these guys. Like I said, I like the linebacker and safety one better. But you see kind of the coverage abilities. It's not great. It's not great. It could get better. And that's kind of what you're playing. You're playing a long game. But like I said, my thought process, 6'5", 240-pound safety. Sometimes you get them at 6'6". Now we're talking about a potential 6'6", 240-pound safety. You got to teach them how to cover. I understand. You got to teach them that. But that's fine. And you look just to see what overall he'll be at some of these other positions. So they want to be a fullback. We ain't doing that. You could turn him to a D lineman. He'll be an edge setter, which is not my favorite archetype. And I don't think that's very fitting for him, especially when you consider he don't have that high block shedding. Him being an edge setter really don't make sense. His block shedding is lower than his finesse and power moves, but it is what it is. He'll be an edge setter. Gap specialists at D tackle also don't fit in my opinion. Even though the overall is there, I really don't think he's, molded to play D-line, honestly, when it comes to his attributes. You could get him there with progression, but I think linebacker is the clear choice, is the number one option, and I think a sneaky one is going to be that safety spot, man. Whether it's free safety or strong safety, they even say he could play running back better than he could play tight end, which is actually kind of crazy. He's a 64 overall tight end, but this is a guy, you really don't have to keep at tight end. You go throw at defense. I wouldn't suggest running back, but you can really go throw him at defense, or you can play him at tight end if needed. Another archetype I really, really do like, and try it, man. Try it and let me know y'all thoughts. So now let's move over to the defensive side of the ball, and let's start with the D lineman. Another archetype I really like. It's a theme in this video. It's a lot of these athletes I really do like, and the power rushing defensive lineman, I think it's better than last year. Maybe I just didn't dive that deep into them, no diddy, last year, and really didn't understand how good they were. But these guys are very solid, bro. And like I said, the thing when I showed y'all earlier, I like how you get some different type archetypes. Sometimes you get them with the higher finesse moves. Sometimes you get them with the higher power moves. Sometimes you get them 300 pounds. Sometimes you get them 240, 250. So it's kind of a couple different archetypes of these athletes. And you definitely see that with the athlete power rusher. This one right here, 6'5", 300 pounds, 78 on the speed, 84 acceleration. That's pretty darn good, with 87 on the strength as well. And you kind of look at these guys can never play offense. Get that. Just understand that these guys are not offensive players whatsoever. They can't play O-line. They can't go play tight end. They're defensive linemen. They don't even need to be an athlete. I don't even know why some of these guys are just regular DNs. But yeah, they call them athletes. Now let's look. The tackling, good spot, 80. 80 is solid tackling, with 80 on the hit power, also pretty good. 72 on the block shedding. That's workable. That's workable, especially as he's an edge rusher. He could go play D tackle. Also looking here, the 73 on the finesse moves with the 80 on the power moves is elite for a defensive lineman coming out of high school. That's elite. That's elite. We'll take that every single day, man. That's why I like these power rushers. I always say the power rushers is like the most balanced defensive lineman archetype. You kind of get in everything. Power moves, finesse moves, strength, block shedding, a little bit of speed, also a little bit of tackling, maybe some hit power. You're kind of getting everything. What you're not getting, no coverage ability. 51 is honestly not the end of the world for a guy that's 300 pounds. You probably don't ever want him covering. But 300 pounder with 80 or 51, like I said, that's not the end of the world. I've seen worse. But these guys are very, very good, man. He's a 75 overall at edge rusher. If you move him to D tackle, he turns to a pure power. And I don't love that because it's kind of limiting him a little bit. And I don't want to limit a guy that could be super well-rounded. So if you don't know, when you turn him into a pure power, he can no longer upgrade his finesse moves. And we already seen his finesse moves is at like 73. So it could get up into the 80s, and he could become a finesse and a power rusher. You move him to D tackle, no, he's just power. So that's the only issue I would have with moving him over to D tackle. They say he could play linebacker. He honestly could. He's 6'5", 300 pounds. He got enough speed. Was it 78 speed, something like that? He got enough speed to zone coverage at 51. Well, you could develop that into the low 70s, the high 70s. That's good enough. He could play linebacker. Would I do it? No, but he could definitely play linebacker. I suggest keeping him at edge rusher, or move him to the D tackle route. But I really do just like them guys staying at, the traditional edge. And I brought in two of them. Let's look at the other guy who is 6'5", 284 pounds. I actually brought in three of them. Let's look at this guy, the third one, who is the lighter archetype. This one is 6'5", 250. So damn near 50 pounds lighter than the last archetype. 81 on the speed, 83 on the acceleration, 88 strength. You're still getting solid strength. We already know they can't play any offense at all. Come over here to the defensive side of the ball, and 76 on the block, 67 on the block shedding, 80 on the finesse move. So this one is more of the finesse rusher version, if that's your thing. But you're still not losing out on much power moves. 75 on the power moves, 86 on the pursuit. Also, like, he's just well-rounded. He's just a super well-rounded defensive lineman, and you look to see what his highest overall going to be. So edge or D tackle. And the interesting part about this one, you kind of have the choice. Do you want to keep him at power rusher, or do you want to turn him into a speed rusher? And that's for the edge. Sometimes this will happen, stuff like this. So if you put him at left edge, he's a speed rusher. Put him at right edge, he's a power rusher. In this situation, I would take the one overall hit and put them at power rusher because I believe they have better abilities. They have some run stopping abilities, and the speed rusher, he could get quick jump, but will he get the acceleration? Maybe. So it's kind of a decision to make, man. You could put him at speed rusher and hope he get the quick jump. I'm not mad at that, but the thing I love, you got the option to decide. You have the option to decide if you want to, what archetype you want to put him at, or maybe you want to put him at D tackle, speed rusher. But it's up to you, man. Like I said, linebacker probably not going to be it, or safety. But definitely somewhere on the D-line, these guys are phenomenal, man. I love that archetype this year compared to last year. I don't know, last year I feel like it just wasn't as good. And let's move over to the last athlete in the entire game that we'll cover. And that's going to be your athlete thumping middle linebacker. Do I need to say too much, man? Probably the best in the whole entire game. And the thing I mentioned earlier that I really like, even when you go down to the 3-star level, you're not losing out on speed. You're still getting guys with 88, 89, 90 speed on these 3 stars. And you don't see that with other position groups. When you recruit a speedster receiver, 4-star is going to be at this speed level. The 3-star is going to be on this speed level. With the athlete middle linebackers, they all be on the same level. Whether it's a 5-star or 3-star, they all be at similar speed. Like I said, the other attributes will take a little bit of a decrease, but I'm fine with that when speed is the most, I'm not going to say it's the most important, but it's one of the most expensive things to upgrade. So if you have a guy that come in with low speed and you need to upgrade it, well, guess what? It's probably going to cost you 12, 14, 13, whatever to upgrade that speed, compared to if you got to teach them how to cover, that attribute, the cover attribute usually only costs 4, 3, 6 on the expensive end. It's not as nearly as expensive as speed or power. So that's kind of my thought process, going after these 3-star athlete, guys. And they can play anywhere on the field, man. Let's look. So 89 speed for the 4-star version, good acceleration, also good strength, 80 on the strength, change directions also up there. Damn, he can go play corner. Like, actually, he go play corner for you. They can't play offense at all. You know, they cannot play offense at all. Even though this one has some solid catching, 69 to catching, that's pretty good for a a linebacker here. So come over here to the defense, and you get to see what these guys actually look like. So tackling is going to be 81, hit power 80. That's pretty good. You know, when you get to the 3 stars, they'll take a little bit of a hit on the hit power. They won't have as high of a hit power. But a 4-star version, 80 hit power, we could work with that. We definitely could work with that. Block shedding, 76. We could work with that. Finesse moves and power moves, 60, 74, and 68. That's pretty good. Is it amazing? No. But if you put them at edge, which I love that conversion, moving these guys to edge rusher, now you're getting the 89 speed edge rusher. That's going to turn into a speed rusher, and you're getting quick jump off the start. Quick jump instantly, as long as you upgrade it. But he's going to have enough acceleration to get quick jump instantly. Also, you're getting solid coverage ability. 75 on the zone coverage is pretty darn good for a thumping middle linebacker. If you just go after a regular thumping linebacker that don't have the athlete associated with it, his zone coverage is going to be way, way lower. His man coverage is also going to be lower. So that's why I really, really do like these guys. You look to see, where can these guys play on the field? Well, where you need them. Like, where do you need them on defense? He could play anywhere. He could play edge, and like I said, that's probably one of my favorite conversions for him, because you get a super crazy edge rusher with an insane speed, insane just he can do everything, Or you put him at box specialist. Another very good conversion. Very good conversion, man. Because he has the speed. He has the tackling. The zone coverage, it'll develop. It don't start off great, but it'll develop. Any other linebacker spots, I'm so glad they fixed the speed rushing outside linebacker from last year. Because last year, you couldn't really move these guys to outside because they'll turn to speed rusher, and that archetype was glitched. So I'm glad that's no longer in the game. So they could play your Sam, your Will, your Mike. They could stick at Mike. They could even play corner. I wouldn't do D tackle. I wouldn't. But you could. You actually could. He'll turn into a gap specialist, and that's because he has that good block shedding, and he actually has enough strength to play D tackle also. He just don't have the weight, And corner, he could also play corner. He'll turn into a boundary. And the good part about turning into a boundary, once again, the press coverage starts off low for this archetype, and therefore you could get 99 man coverage pretty easily on this archetype, and he has enough speed to play corner. So these guys will literally play anywhere on the defense. Y'all already know how I feel about these, corner or these athlete middle linebackers, man. Y'all already know. So if y'all enjoyed this video, man, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all boys, man. I really do. Check out the ebook/membership. Like I said, some very, very big updates coming to that thing. I'm going crazy. Y'all going crazy. And we on to the next one.